Tennessee suffered a tough loss at home last week. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to preview the week 4 big games this weekend in college football next with Michael from the Vol Fanatic Show right here on the College Huddle. And joining me now live this evening is Michael Allen from the Vol Fanatic Show. My good friend Michael, how's it going this evening, buddy?
Man, it's going great. You mentioned coming off an unfortunate, tough loss, overtime loss to Georgia. The best chance we've had of beating Georgia since Josh Heupel has been there. It stings, but you know what? Sometimes we can take some positives out of a loss, and that's what Skylar and I did last night on our podcast. If you get a chance, go check it out, the Vol Fanatic Show on YouTube. We talked a lot about the game from last week and what our thoughts are on Tennessee moving forward. But fantastic time. We're in the heat of college football, so it's no better time to be a podcaster. So, Eric, how are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's been busy. I mean, it feels like once you get in the football season, you're just drinking from a water hose. It's just nonstop, but I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. It's what we live for as college football fans is to get on here and chop it up with each other. Let's go back and talk a little bit about that game.
All right, let's do it.
I felt like the Vols really exposed Georgia in the first half. They had all the momentum for the most part, and despite holding the edge in yardage and a lot of the statistics, Georgia was able to hang around, and they never could kind of deliver the death punch. They had plenty of opportunities to really get out way ahead of Georgia, and they never really could. Am I reading that game correctly? Is that kind of how you guys saw the first half going to? Is that Tennessee just was dominating that game, but Georgia was just hanging around?
Yeah, so my opinion on it, obviously, Tennessee had a great game plan from the start. And it showed. I mean, Joey Aguilar was on fire. He was 14 of 14 in the first quarter with 2 touchdowns throwing. He had a rushing touchdown added along with that. Tennessee led 21-7 after the end of the first. Just everything seemed to be going right for Tennessee. It looked like Tennessee was going to start running away with it, which is never going to happen against Georgia. And a huge shout out to Kirby Smart. I mean, in my opinion, and I know you're an Ohio State guy. I'm not talking down about Ryan Day by no means, but in my opinion, with Nick Saban gone, Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football. And he proved it because most coaches, they make their big adjustments at halftime. Kirby Smart and his staff made an adjustment at the end of the first quarter. And they were able to limit the big plays that Tennessee was able to get in the first quarter of that ball game and just completely shut Tennessee down. Tennessee went from getting a total of 224 yards in the first quarter to the second quarter only mustering 35 total yards for the entire quarter. Now, one thing I also attribute that to is Tennessee's bread and butter is built on running the ball first, which sets up the passing game. And in that first quarter, it was kind of overlooked. You ran the ball 8 times for a total of 11 yards, but you threw for 213 yards. And as I mentioned, Joey Aguilar was perfect in the first quarter passing. When Georgia adjusted in the second quarter, they still threw 7 passes, 2 of 7 for 16 yards, but you only ran the ball 6 times for 19 yards, and that's good for 3.2 yards a rush. And you, being a football guy, know that if you get 3 yards a pop on every single run, you're never going to get a fourth down. You're always going to move down, and you're going to score the football each and every time. So why not keep on running the ball to try to open other things up? Tennessee ran a total of 13 plays in the second quarter compared to Georgia ran 24 plays. And then you move over to the third quarter, and honestly, it was a little bit more of the same. They did pass the ball a little bit better, 97 total yards, 75 of those passing, but still, you only ran 12 plays in the third quarter, and I do attribute a lot of that to Georgia, who their very first drive of the second half, they took the ball and went on a almost an 8-minute drive, which ended up leading to a field goal, or I'm sorry, led to a touchdown for Georgia that put them ahead in that third quarter. So that long drive right there really hurt Tennessee. But then you finally got things going in the fourth quarter. And you did it by running the football. 72 yards on 13 rushes, which is good for 5.5 yards a carry. So for the entire game, if Tennessee had just focused a little bit more on running the ball to set up the pass, they could have had more success and maybe finally put the foot on the throat of Georgia and held them at bay. But they unfortunately were not able to do that. But I give complete credit to Georgia. Great teams find a way to win, and that's exactly what Georgia did in the game.
There's been a lot of talk about the the play calling and then how the regular or the fourth quarter came to a close with Tennessee having a chance to win in regulation with a long field goal that was missed badly. Um, what's your thoughts on that whole scenario?
So Skylar and I talked quite a bit about that last night. We weren't blaming the missed field goal by any means because there were several different things that led up to that Tennessee could have absolutely won the game on. I mean, we go back to the drive before whenever Georgia scored the touchdown and got the 2-point conversion to tie the game up. It was just a fantastic play by Georgia. You know, had a true freshman corner guarding the wide receiver that played the best coverage that he had all night long. You just had Gunnar Stockton put the ball in the perfect spot, and the wide receiver went and made a play. Only his guy could get that ball. 2-point conversion. Josh Heupel had 3 timeouts. He very well could have called one there, settled his defense down because you knew some sort of pick play was coming. That's exactly what happened. Georgia executed, got the score. Now fast forward to what you asked about the field goal. So you still have 2 timeouts at this point. Georgia has exhausted all of their timeouts. So everything is on your time at this point. Tennessee was trying to get the ball to the middle of the field on the play. There were 7 seconds left on the clock. Ended up getting a false start penalty. Would have been a 38-yard field goal at the time if it wasn't for the penalty. Just trying to get the ball to the middle of the field. You had a young guy get a false start penalty, move you back to 43-yard field goal. Still 7 seconds left on the clock. You've got 2 timeouts. Once again, Georgia has no timeouts, so they cannot ice your kicker. You still have all the time in the world. Our thoughts were you should have went ahead and used a timeout there because you can't take them with you. Use a timeout, settle things down a little bit because at this point, Tennessee decides, all right, we're going to just bring the field goal kicker in. We're going to go ahead. We're going to kick this thing. Everything was kind of rushed because after the penalty, you got 25 seconds on the play clock instead of 40. Everything was just rushed. Still kicking from the left hash, which wasn't what you planned on originally. It just seemed like Tennessee panicked in that moment as far as, we're finally getting this chance. We can beat Georgia. We can beat them on this field goal right here, just like we did against Alabama back in 22. But they panicked, is what it seemed like, and just rushed everything. And I think that led to the missed field goal by Max Gilbert, who is normally pretty reliable. So I just feel like you could have managed your time a little bit better there, called a timeout, settled things down. Even if you didn't run another play to get the ball to the middle of the field, I feel like if you give your kicker a little bit more time to actually get set up, go through his motions instead of rushing it, Tennessee, we might be talking about a Tennessee victory instead of a Georgia overtime victory right now.
Tennessee has came into the season with a lot of unknowns. Nico leaves. You don't know what you have at quarterback. Um, you made it to the college football playoff last year, but then you got blitzkrieged in Columbus, Ohio, and it was kind of like, what are we going to get from Tennessee? Not a whole lot of people were picking the Vols to go back to the college football playoff. If Georgia's expected to win the SEC, and they're obviously one of the favorites to do so, then I would have to say that Tennessee's performance last Saturday puts them in the upper echelon of teams in the SEC who are going to vie for a playoff berth once again. I feel like Tennessee's better than a lot of people thought they were going to be, and a lot of how that has to do with great quarterback play that you're getting as well. Am I reading the room right there?
I think you're 100% right. So, um, if you actually get a chance, go over to our website, volfanatics.com, and a shout out to you, by the way, and some of your guys for helping us get that up and going. I wrote an article after the Georgia game that said, basically shortening up the article, I said, the loss to Georgia stings, but Tennessee is back. And what I mean by that is, Tennessee last year, you brought it up. They made it to the playoffs behind Nico Iamaleava, but mainly it was Tennessee's defense that got them there. There was numerous games last year where Tennessee's defense won them ball games. Nico did just enough to be able to help Tennessee win a couple of ball games, but we saw by the time you got to Ohio State in the playoffs, Tennessee was outmanned. They could not compete. Now you fast forward to this season, and you're 100% right. There were so many unknowns, especially at the quarterback position. But I felt like the defense was still going to be good. Now I do have some question marks on the defense this season. Some of that has to do with injuries, but I still think the defense is good for Tennessee. I felt like we had a talented, I mean, super talented group of wide receivers and running backs, just unproven. Got an offensive line that had a bunch of question marks around it that have surprisingly outperformed my expectations even through 3 games this season. And a quarterback that nobody knew what he's going to be capable of. And he's honestly a dark horse right now. And by the end of the season, probably won't be a dark horse to win the Heisman Trophy. And I might be speaking a little bit out of turn saying that. Maybe got my orange glasses on, but I honestly think he could be in New York by the end of the season if he continues on the path that he's on. But kind of going towards the article again, the gap has shrunk between Tennessee and Georgia significantly. Georgia is still a better team, but the gap is not near as wide as it has been. I mean, in Josh Heupel's tenure at Tennessee, which dates back to 2021, Tennessee has not scored more than 17 points against Georgia. They just put up 41 points against Georgia this past weekend. They haven't been able to stop Georgia at times. There was times in that ball game where Tennessee's defense did stop Georgia. Like for instance, there was an interception that happened on Tennessee's side of the field. 4 plays later, Georgia is kicking a field goal instead of taking the ball down the field and scoring a touchdown. That's a win. And we saw several different wins for Tennessee's defense in that game. You saw some losses too, but the gap has shrunk significantly. And with that gap shrinking between Georgia and Tennessee, that means it has shrunk between Ohio State and Tennessee, Texas and Tennessee, some of those other great teams in college football. The gap has shrunk. Now, I'm not saying Tennessee is going to go out on any day and beat any one of these teams because I still think there's a gap. But Tennessee has proven that they're not going to be a pushover team for anybody anymore. They're going to be a contender. And I think that if they do what they should do this year, they'll be back in the college football playoffs and should be in a better position this year than last year. I'm not going on a rail saying national championship this year, but I think there could be one in the future if Tennessee continues to build the way that they are, because the size of the gap has shrunk significantly from last year to this year. So if there's another gap shrinkage, all of a sudden you're looking at Tennessee might end up surpassing a team or two that's at the upper echelon of college football.
You brought up Nico. um, I want to get your take, and I want to get your impression of the fans' take. He's 0-3. He just got his head coach fired at UCLA. It is a dumpster fire over there. Your thoughts?
I mean, my personal thoughts, because I will admit I've been one that has been hate watching UCLA just to see how Nico does. I am one of those Vol fans. I want to give a shout out to Barstool UCLA, by the way, who after their blowout loss to Utah got on there and said a shout out and a welcome in to all the Tennessee fans that are out there in my mentions now because of the hate watching of Nico. But anyway, here's what I'll say about Nico, and I'll kind of tie Josh Heupel into it. Why I think Josh Heupel is such a good coach, and Josh Heupel is going to get the best out of any quarterback that he has on his roster. Now, they might not perform very good. You look at Nico last year. He was fine. He wasn't great, but he was fine. And I felt like that was about all you were going to get out of him last year. This year, seeing him at UCLA, I see a lot of things that at the beginning of his time at Tennessee, when he was a freshman that came in garbage time, there's a lot of things that he did then that Josh Heupel got out of him last year that he's now reverted back to. I also see a quarterback that he he knows, even though he claimed that he was going to a place that had a better offensive line, better players, better pieces around him, all this stuff. You see a guy that knows he does not have the pieces around him, and he's having to try to do things for himself out there, and it's just not working out for him. I felt like, especially in the previous game that they played against, was it New Mexico? I felt like he played fine, but he doesn't have anybody around him to help him, and I I don't know if that's a knock on UCLA as a program. If that's a knock on the head
Well,
coach that just got fired.
isn't
I
that
mean,
why he complained and threatened to leave Tennessee to begin with, though?
that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
He claimed that he did not have the help around him, did not have the offensive line to protect him, did not have the wide receivers to um to help him out on the outside. Now, let me throw something else out. All right. So, one of those wide receivers he was talking about is Chris Brazzell III, who, by the way, in game 3 this season has already surpassed his season total in yardage and in touchdowns from last year. Against Georgia alone, he had 6 catches for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, was it a production problem of people around Nico, or was Nico the problem? So, I mean, that's something else that can be looked at. Ultimately, I think that Nico's biggest problem of all is the people that are in his ear. And I wonder if, there's been rumor that he's talked about sitting out the rest of this season for his mental health. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Is the people in his ear that is causing him stress?
Mm,
And I don't see him being successful long term at any level of football as long as he has some of those people in his ear around him. And it's gonna be hard for him because one of those people is his own father.
right.
I mean, it's hard to sit there and look at your dad in the eyes and say, "Hey, I need you to take a step back and let me live my life, let me play my game." But that's the biggest problem right now.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. All right. So, real quick, one last Tennessee question, man. I have
All
a
right.
saying for the upper echelon schools in college football: win 10 and you're in.
Mm-hmm.
That should be that's your goal. You win 10, you're probably going to make the CFP if you're in the Big 10 SEC. You got games against UAB this week, Mississippi State on the road. You host Arkansas, at Alabama, at Kentucky. You host Oklahoma. You host New Mexico State, at Florida, or I guess Jacksonville. And then, or no, that's Georgia that plays Florida
Yeah.
in the cocktails. My bad. So you're in the swamp. But that's literally probably one of the easiest games left on your schedule. And then you host Vanderbilt. So, I'll break this down into Alabama, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and then the rest. Although Arkansas can be scary at times. Are you going to get 10 wins out of that?
I think we get 10 wins. But instead of adding Arkansas, I am still going to add Florida in there, and I will explain why I put them in there. Look, I'll explain why I put them in there. All right. So here's what I will say about the schedule. I think that you obviously you're going to beat UAB, you're going to beat New Mexico State. That won't be any problem at all. Mississippi State is going to be a sneaky game because they're going to be undefeated coming into that game. Granted, the only team with a pulse that they will have played by the time Tennessee plays them
Arizona
next week
State,
is Arizona State.
that they rushed the
Yep.
field for.
I've got my thoughts on that as well, but we'll leave those off of this podcast for today. That's
That's
that's a
okay.
totally separate thing.
I think everybody who's watching this understands exactly what this look was.
Yeah. Here's all I'll say if you're a Mississippi State fan watching. What has Arizona State done other than make the playoffs one time for you to rush the field against them? I will leave it at that. So Mississippi State can sneak up on you, but I think the Tennessee gets a win in that one. Arkansas, It's going to be a decent game. You do get in Knoxville, so I think you win that one. The Alabama game on the road. After the Florida State game at the beginning of the season, man, I was feeling great about that one. Alabama has looked better, but I still feel decent about that game. I think that would be a game that it would be acceptable for you to lose. And I think that could still be a loss. That's a 50-50 game there. Kentucky, not worried about that one whatsoever. Kentucky will not be able to score enough points to keep up with Tennessee. Um, the Oklahoma game makes me a little bit nervous. I'm more nervous about that game than I thought I would be at the beginning of the season because it looks like Brent Venables has finally listened to what I told him to do in the offseason, and he is letting his offensive coordinator do a lot of the job instead of trying to micromanage every single part of his team. John Mateer looks good. The offense looks good. But are they going to be able to do it throughout the entire SEC season? One advantage for Tennessee, you get the game at home. So I feel good about that game overall. Already mentioned New Mexico State, Florida. Here's why I mentioned them and added them back into that. This is Tennessee's season. It's something about going down to the swamp that gives Tennessee the heebie-jeebies. And something happens every single time they're down there, even when they're a favorite and they end up getting beat. That's the only thing that makes me nervous about that game because it's probably going to be a night game. And Tennessee always loses a night game that they should not lose. This season could be Florida. So that's why I add that back in there. I think Tennessee's got more talent. They should win the game, but it's Florida. It's probably going to be at night, and it's in the swamp. Vanderbilt, I'm not worried about that one. Now, Diego Pavia looks pretty good this season.
Hey, maybe you can set up a deal with Diego if Tennessee beats him. You get you one of your guests gets to go on a date with his mom or something. You know?
Mike could do something like that, but
Yeah. I think you guys should
yeah,
should promote that.
I do want to bring up something about Vanderbilt though. So going into this season, Vandy fans they're talking it all up, talking about how Vanderbilt's going to be the best team in the conference this year. Year in and year out, normally Vanderbilt's not even the second best team in the state this year, or in the state of Tennessee. Normally it's Tennessee, and then you got Memphis, and then it's Vanderbilt. This year could be a little bit different. Vanderbilt is actually looking good so far,
Yeah,
and I
so
think
far.
they're going to have a slightly better season than what I originally predicted. But Vanderbilt is still Vanderbilt. They're not winning a Natty. They're not winning the SEC. They're not making the playoffs. Nothing like that. I can see them getting 7 or 8 wins this year, though, and that's very good for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I do think when you look at that schedule, Tennessee might drop another game on that schedule, but I'm not seeing a place right now, and maybe I've got my orange glasses on, clouding my vision. I'm not seeing anywhere on the schedule that Tennessee drops 2 games. So I think they hit that magic number of 10 and make the playoffs this season.
Okay. Good enough, man. All right. Enough Tennessee talk here. Let's dive into week 4, man. All right, Michael, I am on a losing streak, buddy. I won week 0 against Chief from Cocaine Willie's podcast, and 3 weeks in a row I have dropped to the guest. So I need to pick up a win. So here's the rules of engagement here. We'll go back and forth, and we can agree on every single game. And if we agree on every single game, that 5th game I will go the opposite way of you, just to make it fun. But
So
that
are we
hasn't happened other than week 1, which was the second week of this. So
are we picking straight up or are we picking against the spread?
we're picking against the spread.
Okay.
Yep. So making it a little difficult on ourselves here. So yeah, I am through 3 weeks. I am 1-3 now. Because week 0, we're counting that. So I need to get back in the win column here. Here we go. Tomorrow, big noon kickoff on Fox. It is going to be number 17 Texas Tech at number 16 Utah. The Utes are getting 3.5 in this games. I think that's your home field advantage right there.
Yeah.
I think the bookies are saying this is a pick 'em. So that being said, Michael, what you gonna do?
I love this contest right here because we've actually over the last couple of weeks have started something on my own show. Oh, I brought it up. There's a little thing in sports called WTF, and no, that does not stand for the vulgar form of what the crap. That stands for wrong team favored. And I think in this case, we have a wrong team favored. Utah is very good. They have a great defense, and they have an offense that is putting up some points this year. But Texas Tech can put up points at will. And I think Texas Tech this weekend is going to put up more points than Utah, and I think they get the outright win in this game.
This is going to be a very high scoring game, and I actually believe with you. I think Texas Tech is a field goal advantage here, not Utah. So yeah, WTF? I'm with you. I'll take the points, man. Give me the Red Raiders. Yeah.
Yep.
By the way, they had a video they posted last week that was making the rounds on social media about their facility. Oh my gosh. I had no idea Texas Tech's facility was that nice. They
It's
are
all that old money out there.
they are spending some oil money. That program is good. My prediction is that program is going to run the Big 12.
I completely agree with you.
All right. I put this next one in here because I think it's a fun spread, and
Yep.
I think it's Vegas saying, "Come on. Come on. We know what you want to do." Tulane, who's
Yep.
3-0 by the way, takes on number 13 ranked Ole Miss. And if I'm not mistaken, Tulane's old quarterback, where did he go? It wasn't Ole Miss, was it?
He went to Duke, who Tulane actually beat last
Yeah,
week. And
that's right. Thank you. He
I
went to
want, I want,
Duke.
I want to give a shout out to Tulane. By the way, that was my WTF from last week, beating Duke.
Oh,
So shout out to Tulane with that one there. But yes, the old quarterback went to Duke, and then they went out there and just beat up on him. I
yeah.
did have to sweat that one out towards the end, as Duke made a bit of a comeback, but Tulane still got the win. So um,
All
this
right.
game
I
here,
go first on this one, by the way. We'll go
okay,
back and forth. That
okay.
way, in case there's one that's different. 12 and a half feels like a lot to me in this
Mm.
game. I feel like Ole Miss is definitely the better team. They have the better athletes. I think they're better coached, and they're at home, and all of that should say, let's take Ole Miss here. But 12 and a half feels like a lot. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the points and say Tulane's going to lose by less than 12.
So in this game, Tulane's a great team, and they actually gave Ole Miss a run for their money last year in that game. Ole Miss, I do know that Austin Simmons, the quarterback, has dealt with injuries. He actually missed last week's game. I do think he's supposed to be back this week. Um, 12 and a half, that's a great number. I could see this game being anywhere from 10 points to 14 points, but I'm actually going to say that if the line here was 14 and a half, I would agree with you and I would go with Tulane. But I think that this contest right here is going to be a two touchdown affair. And I think that that second touchdown comes late in the contest, that Ole Miss just finally puts the game away. So I am going to take Ole Miss in the points, but I take it hesitantly because that 12 and a half, that's a big number right there for this contest. But I am slightly leaning Ole Miss in this one.
Okay. Well, good news. Since that means we disagree there, we can agree on the rest of them if we want. So,
That's right.
the next one, let's head up to the Big Ten. Number 21, Michigan, getting 2.5. They're at Lincoln, taking on the Cornhuskers of Nebraska. Michigan 2-1 on the season. Nebraska 3-0. This is a 3:30 kick on CBS. Michael, what do you think on this one, man?
So I'm not a big Michigan fan, but I've got to say this: Bryce Underwood looks good, man. He looks really good. Nebraska with Dylan Raiola out there, he's been fine. He hasn't just jumped off the page at me so far. Matt Rule's a good coach. I do think if we're looking at the coaches, I would take um, I would take Matt Rule over Shamar Moore, Shamad
Well,
Moore, however you.
Sharon Moore's not even going to be there.
Oh, he
He's
won't be at this game.
That's
Okay, so this
right.
is
Yeah.
one of them that he is
Hmm.
he's suspended for. Okay. That might change my opinion a little bit as far as how this game's going to go, but I think I'm still going to take Michigan in the points. I think they
Okay.
win this game by a field goal, which means three. I was thinking probably closer to 10, but I do think that the coach being out, that does play a little bit of a part in it. But I'm still going to take Michigan in the points at three.
Okay. If Nebraska hasn't had a win, if they were to win this game, Nebraska hasn't had a win like this in well over a decade and a half.
Hmm.
It's been a long time. And Matt Rule, when it comes to his development of programs and rebuilding programs, year number 3 is when he takes that next step. If Nebraska is going to be in the conversation for the college football playoff at the end of the year, they have to win this football game. Dylan Raiola, year 2, you brought it up. Underwood, year 1. Underwood has looked good. Against Oklahoma, not so much. He looked like a freshman.
Yeah.
And that's to be expected when you have a first year starting quarterback who's a true freshman. There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, no, regardless of how high his recruiting ranking was. Dylan Raiola's got all that experience. It's in Lincoln. They need this one. I think Nebraska wins this thing outright in a close one.
Honestly, I would love to see that. Even though we would then have to be dealing with the Nebraska fans going, Nebraska's back, baby. No, you're not back, but you got a big win and a much needed win. I would love to see that for Nebraska, especially 'cause I just want to see Michigan get beat. I mean,
No one likes him in college football. Nobody.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
all right, back down to the SEC, your neck of the woods, my man. This is a fun one. Number 22, surprise of the season, Auburn. At number 11, Oklahoma, who beat those Michigan Wolverines a couple weeks ago. 3:30 kick on ABC. The Sooners are getting 6.5. Again, I get it. I think this is about a touchdown game, so 6.5 is probably the right number. Um, But who is Auburn? Are are they going to continue this streak, or is Oklahoma really going to put together the season that saves Brent Venables' job? Like that's to me, that's the storyline here. Um, you went first on the last one. I'll go first on this one. Boy, 6.5. Again, I think this is a 7-point game. I'll go ahead and take the Sooners. Uh, I feel like they're going to win by 7. That's a tough number.
Yeah. So here, but before I make my pick here, I gotta bring up a college game day thing here. I'm seeing three games on this schedule at least, if not all four of these. That would be better games than the Miami and Florida game that they decided to go to. What are we doing, college game day? You've got three different top 25 matchups where both teams are inside the top 25, and you choose Florida and Miami? I get it, Florida's in the top, or Miami's in the top five, but Florida, after the last 2 weeks, what are we doing? Anyway, that's a whole different topic.
It's a good one.
So So Oklahoma, I actually had to put out an apology to Oklahoma fans as going into this season, um, I felt like Oklahoma was going to be same story, different chapter as far as going to be great on defense, but you're not going to be very good on offense because you got a head coach that's going to handicap you. I mentioned earlier that I think that Oklahoma and Brent Venables has finally decided to stop micromanaging that offense and let his offensive coordinator do the work. John Mateer is looking good. He's actually got some receivers that are healthy this year, which Jackson Arnold did not have last year. But let's flip the page to Auburn for a second. You've got Jackson Arnold going back to Oklahoma, his former team. You've got Auburn that has a good defense and, in my opinion, one of the best wide receiving cores in the SEC. Granted, they have not used them the way that I feel like they should so far. Everything leans towards Oklahoma in this contest. And I agree with you. I think that 7 point margin right there, that's the number. But I'm going to take Auburn to cover this one and
Okay.
possibly win the game outright
Whoa. Woo.
because This is Michael's opinion. This is not, college football opinion. I think Jackson Arnold goes in and he has the game of his life, and he leads Auburn to a victory in this game. I for sure think Auburn covers, but I'm gonna throw in the outright win for Auburn in this game.
All right. Interesting. That's going to be fun to watch. We've disagreed on 3 in a row, buddy.
Yep.
All right. Now the main event. Um, and who would have ever thought that this game would be one that people would highlight as the game of the week? Illinois Indiana is a basketball game. Okay.
Hmm.
Those are your two of your powerhouses in the Big Ten when it comes to basketball, not football. But under Burt and Sig, all of a sudden these are football schools. Illinois came into the season and I was calling them this year's Indiana in the Big Ten. And then Kurt Signetti said, "Hold up, not so fast. We're still Indiana of last year's Big Ten this year, but they haven't played anybody."
Hmm.
Illinois played Duke and then embarrassed them in the second half. Illinois has looked great in the second half of football games. They are a top 10 team and they have that's kind of their goal this year and they feel that they can get there. Again, kind of similar to what I said earlier about Nebraska. If Illinois wants to get and reach their goals, they have to win this football game. If they lose in Bloomington at Indiana, it's going to be tough for them to overcome that loss with games against Ohio State on their schedule this year coming up, and and a couple other difficult games that might sneak up and get them. So if Illinois wants to be the 10 and we're in category in the Big Ten, they need this win. Indiana's got a much more difficult schedule coming up than what Illinois does, believe it or not. So Indiana, if they want to make the college football playoff, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have to win this football game. Huge game. Vegas giving Indiana 5.5 at home when they're ranked 19th and Illinois is ranked ninth. I think actually eighth, if I'm not mistaken. To me, that is a slap in the face of Bielema and the Illini. And they've had this game circled and highlighted on their schedule for an offseason. They want this win. They want to prove to everybody that they are a top 10 football team in the country. They're going to play great defense. They're going to play better defense than Indiana has seen by far this season. I'll tell you that much. And like I said, they are a second half team. If this thing's close at halftime, Illinois is going to win this football game. I think the Illini win this game, so I don't even care about those points.
Yeah. So as far as this game goes, I like Kurt Signetti, and I think that what he did last year for Indiana was incredible. But you also had a Indiana team that, when the moment shined brightest, and when they played a team that had a pulse, they folded under the pressure.
Yes, they did.
And I trust Brett Bielema more than I do Kurt Signetti right now. I trust Luke Altmaier more than I do Fernando Mendoza right now as well. And here's what I'll say about Bielema and Illinois. They are one of those old style teams that they're going to play smash mouth football. They're going to play tough, hard nosed defense. They're going to pound the ball down your throat for 4 quarters. Now, Luke Altmaier, he's good. And I think that he can throw the ball over the top as well. I mean, he's got one more passing yard than Mendoza does on the season at 709 compared to Mendoza at 708. He's got 8 touchdowns on the season too. So it's not like Illinois is just focusing on that ground game, because they can throw it too. But they're wanting to pound the rock. They're going to make you fight for 4 quarters of football. And I just don't think Indiana can play that style of game and win. So I'm with you on that one. I am taking Illinois outright to win this game. The points don't matter to me. I'm taking Illinois to win the ball game.
Yeah, it's a big game in the Big Ten for postseason implications. at this football game.
And
So
you know, I've been a big fan of Brett Bielema ever since the bowl game last year against South Carolina, where he just completely trolled Shane Beamer. I don't know if you remember that right
I
there, but
do, I
he
do.
had Shane Beamer looking like an absolute fool in that game. And you see Bielema, he's walking away with a big old smirk on his face. I've loved him ever since that. I really like Brett Bielema as a coach.
Uh, he's the quintessential Midwestern Big Ten head football coach. He never was going to fit in the SEC. He just wasn't. Uh, and he wasn't gonna fit well in the NFL either. He
Yeah,
is exactly where he needs to be. A lot of people don't know he played his college ball at Iowa. Uh,
that makes sense. His
So
coaching style, that makes sense.
there's been a lot of buzz around that, talking heads saying that when Kirk Ferentz decides to finally step down, that one of the phone calls Iowa might make will be to Burt. I don't see him leaving Illinois for Iowa. I think he
Yeah,
is
I think that
very
would be
happy where he's at.
I think that'd be a good call for Iowa, and I think that that's a call that they should make. But I agree with you. I think he's in the perfect spot at Illinois, and I don't think that he takes that job.
Crazy prediction that I have is the next head coach at Iowa will actually be Pat Fitzgerald.
I can see that.
Pat Fitzgerald is on Iowa staff as an analyst currently. He won his court case against Northwestern, so all charges were dropped against him. And his son is currently on the Iowa roster. So Pat Fitzgerald at Iowa is a scary proposition, folks. He's a he's a
I
much better
agree.
he's a much better football coach than Kirk Ferentz, in my opinion. Um,
I agree. So, little
Interesting.
little
So yeah, go
little,
ahead.
little fun question here, since we brought up next head coach at a different team. Who's going to be the next head coach at Florida?
Um, the name I have heard is John Gruden being floated around. Um, I think that the guy who just beat him from USF, is it Matt Gelsch or
Alex Golish. He's a former
Alex?
offensive coordinator at Tennessee that went to USF.
Yeah, he's from Ohio. He's actually an Ohio State grad. Believe it or not. He could be a possibility. He already has some ties in Florida since coaching there. I think he would probably be the least popular pick for Florida. Obviously, they're going to want to go big, I think. They will make. I'm going to get in big time trouble from Florida fans with this one. They should call Urban Meyer.
They should definitely call. Now, do you think that he would end up taking the job? I think he would take the phone call.
He
I
would
don't know
take
if
the
he would
phone
take
call.
the
I don't know
job.
that he would take the job. Um, yeah, but that's an interesting proposition would be. I mean, if you wanna make some waves in the SEC and you want to make some noise and some splash, you bring Urban back. I just don't know that the fan base can stomach it.
So I've got two names. One of them I don't feel as strongly about this year as I did last year, but I'm going to throw him out anyway. Lane Kiffin. I think Lane
Why
Kiffin,
would Lane leave Ole Miss for Florida?
and that's a great point because I mean he's got it made at Ole Miss to where even though he is technically underachieved as far as what the expectations have been year in and year out. They've been in the talks for the college football playoffs every single year. He's not going to get fired at Ole Miss, so he has the dream job there. But Lane's always wanting more, and I do feel like at the top end. Now, granted, there is a definite higher chance of failure at Florida than there is at Ole Miss. But there's also a higher ceiling, in my opinion, at Florida than it is
I
at Ole
agree
Miss.
with that.
The way that Lane Kiffin's mind works, I wonder if he's not wanting to try to go to a place where there's that high ceiling to where he can compete for a championship. The other name that I might throw out there, and his stock is kind of trending downwards a little bit after week 2 of college football, but what about Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State? I just wonder if There's a ceiling out there at Arizona State as well. Now here's the thing, all right. In the Big 12, I feel like Arizona State could 100% compete year in and year out for the Big 12, which means that you'd likely be making the college football playoffs every single year. Where at Florida, it's a much tougher path to make that playoffs. The SEC has got a lot stronger teams than the Big 12 does, so it's tougher. But I wonder if he wants that challenge and he wants a place where, once again, at the top end, Florida, there's a higher chance of going out and winning a championship than it is at Arizona State.
It's going to be tough for him to leave Arizona State. It's his alma mater. He's from the state of Arizona.
That's true too. Yeah, so
Let
it's
me
gonna be
give you
interesting to
let
see
me
where that goes out.
let me give you a crazy name and a crazy scenario. You ready?
All right.
James Franklin.
Honestly, that's not as crazy as what some people would think.
James Franklin has his this is his best opportunity to do something in the Big Ten and college football playoff with his best roster he's ever had assembled. And I've asked the question, and I'll ask it here. If James Franklin can't win a national championship this year, when will he ever win one at Penn State?
Exactly. It's almost like the Georgia situation whenever they had Mark Richt.
Yes.
He had several good teams. He had several chances that he could go out and he could win a title, but you know, he never could get over that hump. And I feel like, just like you said, if James Franklin does not do it this year, when is he ever going to do it? So I feel like if he doesn't win it this year, he might start looking at other places, and Penn State might be looking for somebody else that can get them over that hump. So I could definitely see that. I mean, you look the success he had in the SEC when he was at Vanderbilt. At Vanderbilt,
Hmm.
he had success there. He had two straight seasons where they won 9 games. They won their bowl game to win 9 games at Vanderbilt. Granted, it was some of the worst seasons of the SEC East in history, but still, you won 9 games at Vanderbilt. Imagine what he could do at Florida. So I don't think that's as crazy of a name as what some people might think.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. There's literally zero rumors to it, but I have come to the conclusion that it's the now or never for James Franklin at Penn State, and this fan base, their patience has grown thinner and thinner and thinner, and I think this year, if he falls flat on his face this season, the patience is over. They're gonna be done. Um,
Yep.
he's been given every advantage he possibly will be given. His roster, NIL, uh, coaching staff. He has one of the most expensive coaching staffs in all of college football. He's been given every advantage by the Penn State administration and athletic department to win this year. And if he doesn't do it this year, it's not going to happen for him in Happy Valley. It's
I
just not.
I completely and totally agree with you on that.
Michael, tell everybody where they can find you and follow you in the Vol Fanatic Show at, brother.
So you can find us at all major podcast platforms. Find us on YouTube at Vol Fanatic Show. You can find us on Spotify and Apple. You can also on social media find us on X at Vol Fanatics 1998, the Vol Fanatic Show on Facebook, as well as on Instagram. You can also find us at our website, volfanatics.com. As I mentioned earlier, go check out that article that I wrote last week detailing the loss to Georgia and how we feel as a Tennessee fanatic, Skylar and I, as far as their path the rest of the way and how the gap has shrunk between Georgia and Tennessee from where it used to be. Um, so check those out. You can also find us and 85, I believe it's 86 now, other podcasts just like us at the College Huddle, just like we're on right now. So
Good call on that Ball State one, brother, from today. Well done. Well played. All right, let's see if I can remember this, everybody. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave us a comment down in the comment section below. We appreciate all of that. Until next time, go Vols.
evolve.